last part of this Color With Me series, we are going to be doing the meadow and the tree stump here, as well as this log here at the bottom. And for this, we're going to be using several different mediums and tools. So to start with, we're going to base everything with Derwent Inktense 1510 Beach Green. If you don't have Inktense, then any sort of sap green watercolor will do. If you're going to be using watercolor, make sure you use tiny amounts of water, especially if you're using the Coloring Heaven book, because the paper is not the thickest and you don't want it to wrinkle your page too much. If you do use more water, I would recommend leaving the page for about 24 hours just to let it dry completely before doing anything else. Okay, we're also going to be using polychromos pencils for this because we're going to be doing grass and shading this log, and I find that polychromos is better for this job. So we're going to be using dark indigo 157, chrome oxide green 27, I think that's an 8, yes. Dark sepia 175, permanent green olive 167, and burnt umber 280, cream 102. If you don't have polychromos, you can find the corresponding colors in Prismacolor. Okay, so just match these colors to Prismacolor. I'm also going to be using a Prismacolor white. We will be using water brush markers. I have an olivey green color and a dark cobalt green. I'm also going to be using some Arctic acrylic markers. If you have the 60 B set, I think it's called, C63, C61, but any light olive and dark green colors will work. And I'm also going to be perhaps using a Posca green as well. We will see. Okay, so let's get going. So I'm just going to start by putting a light layer of the Derwent Inktense Beach Green on everything. Keep in mind that it's going to go through an ugly stage, but it will look wonderful once we've put in the shading with the pencils, okay? So in order to get a light layer, I recommend holding the barrel of the pencil lower down so that your pressure is light, okay? We don't want it to be too heavy because then it will take over the page, because Inktense is very pigmented. So just a really light layer, okay, over everything. Okay. We're going to be doing lots of flicking, and that's why we're going to be using polychromos and not Prismacolor. Okay, because grass has long, thin strands, so to get them, you need very sharp points. Okay. It doesn't have to be the neatest in the world, okay? Because the pencil is going to go on top. The next step is to activate with water, and for this I have a water brush with water and a cloth to wipe my brush on. You can also use a regular paintbrush. Just keep in mind that with a water brush you can more easily control the amount of water on the page, and you want to use really small amounts of water just to activate this Inktense. Okay, so we're going to start from the top, right, and keep in mind, as I said, it is going to look ugly at first. Don't worry about it. Okay. So we have activated the Inktense, and as you can see, it doesn't look very good right now. However, the Inktense has given the page a little bit more texture, which is good. Also, we colored the stump and the log with the same beach green, but in the end, it's not going to look green like this. It'll be brownish, but the green undertone will give the image a more cohesive look. And again, keep in mind that once we add the pencil, it's not going to look like this anymore. So we are now going to let it dry completely. I recommend at least an hour before you add any pencils on top. So see you in a while. Okay, so this is what our page is looking like right now. We have allowed it to dry completely. For me at least, it was more than 24 hours, and I also put it under a few piles of books so that it would flatten completely. The paper is a little bit wrinkly, but that's to be expected with watercolor mediums, and I personally am not bothered by that. But if you are bothered by that, you can also iron the page very lightly on a low heat, and make sure to put a cloth towel both underneath and on top, and put the page in between and then iron. I find that is also useful for flattening out the page. Okay, anyway, I digress. Let's move on to our tree stump. I'm going to zoom in a bit. So this tree stump is in the shadows. It's in the shadows because it's got the birch trees above it, and it's also got all of these flowers, either overlapping or on top, casting a shadow onto it. And as such, we're going to put down our shading color first, which is dark indigo 157. All right, and we're going to put this color on the left-hand side. Now, Polychromos is a layering pencil. If you watched my recent Prismacolor versus Polychromos videos, I explained there that Polychromos, yes, is a layering pencil, and so we're going to have quite a few layers of pencil on this stump. All right, it's just a matter of layering and building up the color. The fact that we put ink tints down first will help with this, because it has covered up the white of the paper. All right, so we won't need as many layers as we would if we didn't put ink tints. Okay, so we're just putting this very lightly. Okay. Right, so here we've got a line. We're going to leave that as a highlight. Okay. And here we've got this moss, all right? So it is going to be beneath the moss. Okay. You can leave highlights every once in a while. Make use of the lines that Kanoko has given us. Okay. Okay. The noise that you can hear in the background is the roommate. She is sewing. So if you hear a buzzing sound, it might be the sewing machine. But for now, I think she's just making patterns. I color, she sews. Okay. Okay, we're in between the grass, because we're going to do the grass a different color, and we don't want the dark indigo to be on top of it. Here, very, very lightly, just around this petal. Okay. Here a bit more, because this is a darker area due to the leaves casting shadow. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going on to our next color, which is the burnt umber. Okay, 280, and we're just going to go on top of the dark indigo and then a little bit further out. The color of the blue, dark indigo is going to ultimately almost vanish completely. Okay, that's okay. All it's going to do is give this darker tint to the tree stump, but it won't be that visible. Just a little bit, because Polychromos pencils are translucent. So the color will be there, but it will be affected by the brown color we put on top. Okay, again, light layers, because it's Polychromos, and as you can see, I'm holding my pencil further down the barrel to ensure that I get a light color. Okay, light pressure. This is also good for your hands. I've been discussing coloring with some friends in a Instagram group, and some of them are saying their hands hurt, and it's because they're putting too much pressure. One of the nice things about polychromos is because you're using light layers, you're not putting as much stress on your hands, and so they don't hurt as much. I find working with Prisma hurts my hands more because I tend to press a bit harder to get the blending. Okay. Okay, make sure to leave some highlights every once in a while. A little bit heavier pressure perhaps at the top here underneath the moss because it's our darkest shadow area. Oh, the kids are outside playing. Okay. Right, so chrome oxide green, we're just going to put a touch of this color in, not a lot, okay? And mainly in the shadow areas. It'll just give a green tint to everything. Okay. And the reason we do this is because of the moss on the top. Trees are never one color. There are lots of colors together. Okay, very lightly, not too much. Okay. And next we're going to take the permanent green olive 167 and just blend that out a tad. By blending these colors together and layering them up, we get a more realistic look. Okay, now we're moving on to dark sepia 175 to put our shadows back in because they got lightened up a little bit with the other colors. So only in the deepest shadows. Here at the top. Okay, here I'm holding my pencil a little bit closer to the tip and using a little bit more pressure. And here at the bottom. In between our grass. Okay. Okay. All right, next, burnt umber, just to blend that out a bit and give us back our brownish color. If you've noticed, I've left a highlight on this edge and a highlight over there. And the reason I did that is because it's going to make the tree stump look a bit more round, because trees are round. Layering, building up the colors. Okay, chrome oxide green again. We just go through all the colors, layer. Permanent green olive again, 167. Okay, oh, a bit too there. I will go in one more time with the burnt umber, just to put more brown in there. Okay, now very lightly with this burnt umber, just go over the highlight, just really just a minute amount of pencil, okay? Hardly any, just a touch. And now we're going to take the cream, okay, 102, and only in the highlight areas we're gonna blend out that umber to give the highlight. Okay, medium pressure. Okay, there we go. There's our tree stump. And now we're going to do the moss. For that, we're going to take the burnt umber, 280, and again, very, very lightly here. This is still tree trunk. Okay, so we're gonna just put that there. And then here at the top is the highlight, because the sun is coming from this direction and it's gonna hit the top of this moss. So the top of the moss is the highlight. Okay, and then very lightly, we're going to use the dark umber, burnt umber. Yeah, burnt umber, sorry. I'm getting confused with Prismacolors. And just put in the shadow like that, really lightly. We don't want hardly any pencil. Okay. Then we're gonna take the chrome oxide green, 278, and blend. Again, very, very lightly. Okay. Now we're going to take the permanent green olive, 167, And just blend that all together, going a little bit into the highlight, but keeping the highlight as well. Okay. And then the cream, okay? Blend and go into the highlight a bit. And then Prismacolor white and just the highlight. Okay, and to make it a bit more green, go back in with the green olive 167. And then for the shadow here, back to the burnt umber. There, there, cream. Okay, and I think also a little bit of chrome oxide, green, just over here, over the top of that dark umber, burnt umber. Okay, and I would also just go back in with the dark sepia underneath the moss to put back the cast shadow. Okay, right, now if you like it like this, you can leave it, or we can go over to the next step, which is to add a little bit of acrylic paint pen. Okay, so I'm going to be using the Artex acrylic markers that have a brush pen and my finger. Okay, if you don't want to get your fingers dirty, you can use a Q-tip. And we're going to add a little bit of texture to this moss. Okay, only here at the bottom. Okay, and then dab with your finger. Okay, it gives it a bit more of a mossy texture. Okay, just a little bit. Okay, you can also put a little bit on the tree trunk itself. Okay, dab, dab, dab. All right. And now we go in with the chrome oxide green, just a little bit over top. Circular motions. Okay. Thinking I want a little bit more texture. And leave it to dry a couple of seconds just, rather than smudging it. Yeah. Okay, there we go. That's our moss. And basically what I'm going to do for the log at the bottom, let's just move that up, is exactly the same process. Okay. Now, in order for it to look round, the bottom is going to be dark, the top is going to be light. Okay. And I'm just going to put on some music and you can color along with me. finished the stump and the slug. I am going to finish this darker section here at the bottom off camera, but it's basically just using the same colors, and then we are going to move on to the grass. Okay, so all we have left on this page now is to do the grassy meadow, and for this we're going to be using Prismacolors. Now I just want to say that Prismacolors are not always the best choice for grass because the point of the pencil wears down pretty quickly. Nevertheless, I wanted to show that you can still do grass even with Prismacolors, and so that's what we're going to do now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to choose one section of the grass, perhaps over here, do it, and then the rest I will speed up the camera. So let's get going. So I have a few greens here. I have lime peel 1005, I have parrot green 1006, I have Prussian green 109, dark green 908, Kelly green 1096, and apple green 912. I may or may not get to all of these colors, we'll see, but we're going to start with the apple green 912. So you take your cues from the artwork that Kanoko has given you. So for example, here, these blades of grass are going that way, and these ones are going this way. And so you just do your flicking motions in conjunction with the directions that Kanoko has given. And you just flick with your pencil, okay? So, yeah. Now, if you have longer strands, the strands will be longer. If you have shorter flicks, they'll be shorter. So this is a meadow, a grassy meadow, and therefore I think the strands should be longer because the grass is going to be longer. If you were doing like a lawn in a garden, then you could make your strands shorter. But this is not a garden, and therefore, yes, you make them longer. Now, here where the fox's head is, okay, this is going to be slightly darker because it's going to be a cast shadow. Okay. This is a layering process, so just take your time, enjoy the process. I also rotate my pencil so that I'm always with the sharp point. Okay, we're just going to do this little area here together. And don't worry, your strands of grass should overlap with each other because that's what grass does in nature. It is not uniform. Okay. All right, let's go on to our next color. Now we're moving on to Prussian green 109, and you just put down the pencil and you can layer on top of the apple green. Okay? It's just going to, give it some shadow. Again, you just follow the indications of grass that Kanoko has given. As you build up the layers, it will start looking more realistic. I'm just going to go back in with my apple green to do here around the fox's ear. Our next color is dark green, 908, and again, you just layer on top of what you have already done. Very sharp pencil so you can get nice, sharp strands of grass. Okay, and where the shadow areas are, you can do a bit more. I'm just going back in with my Prussian green around this area of his ear. Okay, and now with the dark green. Oh, that's Toby snoring, if you can hear him. He's having his mid-morning nap. You can even go over the bottom of the birch trees. I find this process relaxing. But as you can see, the Prismacolor pencils are giving us sharp strands as long as it's sharp. And I don't really like doing grass with Prisma because the pencil lead starts to wear down and you have to keep sharpening. And it's a bit of a waste of your pencils that are not that, cheap. Anyway, but they do a good job when the lead is sharp. Okay, so next we have lime peel, which is 105. Now this is a highlight color, which means you're going to put it into the highlight sections that you have in between the other layers of grass. But you start at the bottom of the highlight area and flick upwards. Okay, try not to go into the shadow area because if you do, it will lighten up those shadow areas, which we don't want. It's to fill in these gaps. Again, rotate your pencil. It's okay to do it in an area where you haven't yet put other colors because you can put the other colors on top. It will create depth and dimension. Okay, now we're going in with espresso, a 1099. This is for our deepest shadow areas. So around the fox, you can even go a little bit into his fur there. And around all of these objects, because they cast shadows. And you can even look at the grass that Kanoko has created and put some shadows underneath these blades. It also covers up the line work. Okay, now we're just going to take a water brush marker, okay, in green. And you have two options. You can either use the fine liner end if you have a fine liner, or the brush tip. If you use the brush tip, make sure to use the very, very top of the tip, okay? And a Q-tip, right? And what you're gonna do is you're just going to, in the shadow areas, put a few flicks and then blend them out. Okay, if you get a couple that are thicker, it's not the end of the world. But try and, not do what I just did. And I think I'm going to go over to my fine liner end. Okay. But my fine liner end is not thick enough. Okay. Yeah. Blend them out. Okay. Wait. Got a couple more. There. Right, now what we're going to do is we're going to go back in with our dark green 908 and just blend those out a bit more. If you like your grass without this stage, you can just skip it. And then the next and final stage is to use acrylic markers to simulate wildflowers. Now again, if you like the way your grass looks, you can skip this stage, but I like to add in these wildflowers to make it a little more cohesive looking. And I have it in white, yellow, and pink. And I'm just going to give them a shake, all right? And then I'll be back and we'll put in our wildflowers. Okay, so I start with the white and just create clusters of random wildflowers, okay? Any way you like. Right. Okay, we'll do some yellow ones. You can mix your yellow with your white or do your yellow in other places, wherever you like. Right, and then some pink ones. Pink because we've got these other pink flowers in the image. So let's zoom out and have a look at what it looks like right now. Okay, so you can see the contrast in the meadow between the area that I have added grass to and the area that I have not. And once we have put the grass in everywhere, it's going to look much more realistic, like a natural meadow. And yeah, that's what I'm going to do next. I am going to just do a couple more sections, speed it up, and then I will go off camera and finish it all. So that is our completed page. I really enjoyed the process of coloring this, and I love the end result with the lots of different greens and the way that the white flowers pop now because the background is in. I hope that you enjoyed this color along and that you will be back for more in the future. And thanks for watching. Bye for now.